Hopefully this video will be useful to others who've put a DAB radio into their vehicle. I mean, this is in a Volkswagen T4, and my experience with different aerial designs. So originally, when I fitted the Pioneer DAB radio, I chose just to use the existing FM aerial, which is wing mounted outside, and I just use a passive splitter. So this was my first attempt. So you need a separate DAB connection to the back of the radio. Without this you get no signal whatsoever, and then your existing aerial connection goes into this socket, and then you've got the splitter provides a signal for the FM radio, and then a small connector for the DAB. So I ran with this for a period of well, quite some months actually, and the performance was never great. I mean, it did pick up DAB radio channels, but they kept coming and going as you were driving along. So I did a bit more experimentation, and then I discovered that my original manufacturer's original aerial was no longer making contact at the base. I think it just corroded. It was over 20 years old. So I bought a replacement, and so I had a new aerial to fit outside, which I've done, and that makes connection properly right back through to the FM connector. That didn't fix my problem with the passive splitter, and I then tried one of these active splitters. So it's got a small amplifier module. You take a power feed from the radio, and then you take the aerial connection, and then it splits the output to an FM and the DAB output. In all fairness, this was no better than the passive one. If anything, it was slightly worse, possibly. So having tried all that, I thought, well, what can I do next? So looking online, the next alternative, without drilling extra holes in the vehicle body to mount sort of shark fin type DAB and FM combined antennas, was to get one of the windscreen mounted ones. So that's what I did. So I bought one of these modules here. This is one of the genuine Pioneer ones. I'll put the part number in the description. You can see at the moment I've just held it in with masking tape. I just wanted to make sure the location worked well. I'd seen people online reporting a problem with the earth connection, the ground connection here, because there's a big gap on the T4 and getting it to reach the metal was too far, but actually there's metal just in behind the windscreen, so I think it'll rest on that. Now, because at RF frequencies you don't need to have a short circuit connection, there's no need to scrape the paint off. You can literally just stick it above the metal on the painted surface and it will be adequate. So I've fitted this one about 150 millimeters from the top of the screen, 75 millimeters from the side, parallel, sort of facing downwards. The coaxial connection I've tucked in behind the existing clips. I've taken the trim out here. Normally the trim looks like that. And to remove the trim, there's a small piece here. You have to take the covers off the screws, remove this piece. There's a cover somewhere in behind here with a screw in it. It's behind my curtain rail. You need to remove the screws behind here. They're little clips. These fold back, fold up, and then there's two screws. And there's also two mounting screws for a grab handle. Well, at least there is on the passenger side. You can see where the mounts go. So there's two screws that go in there, and then there's a series of clips up at the top where the trim clips in. So you need to pull it away from these. It's hooked under the lip as well, so you have to be careful not to break it, but it does unclip. Then right down at the bottom, I don't know whether you can see it in there, probably not, there's a clip in there that you've got to sort of pull it out. Once I did that, it was just a case of removing the stereo. There's two release keys you put in the side on the Pioneer, and it just slides out. I've not put it all back together yet. So I slid this out. I used an old coat hanger, which I straightened out, poked that down behind the back of the glove box, and it comes out in the corner. So you can just bring it up, tape the end of the coaxial cable from the new aerial onto it, pull it back along. I pulled through all the excess cable. As I said, I just clipped it in behind these clips on the way down to keep it out of the way for when I put the trim back. And then I coiled up the excess with a couple of cable ties, and it just goes in behind the radio, makes the connection to the back of the stereo. Now, for this particular Pioneer amplified DAB aerial, the power to the module is via the coaxial cable, so you need to enable that in the menu. I think on the Pioneer it's enabled by default anyway, so as soon as I connected it, I got a signal, and when I ran the scan, it picked up over 40 channels, so it wasn't too bad. I've had it fitted for a couple of days and driven around with it, and it seems to work okay. There are places where it does lose the signal, but it tends to be in locations where you could imagine it being difficult for the signal to get through. So it's not as good as an OEM system, but it's far superior to either the active splitter or the passive splitter. So I just taped it in place to try it out. Now I'm happy with it. I'm going to take my masking tape off and use the self-adhesive pads to stick it all in place and clip the trim back in, and then I'll be good to go. So anyone else who's interested in which method of using to supply the signal, I wouldn't bother with the two splitters that I tried. Just go straight to the Windscreen aerial, and certainly the genuine Pioneer one, I think I only paid about £6 for it from eBay. I would recommend it. It seems to work quite well. So there we go. Hopefully that's of use to you.